Welcome to Just Minded My Business Media LLC, where you get information that you can use. I'm your host, Ida Crawford. But before we dive in, subscribe to Just Minded My Business on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Share Just Minded My Business with your family, friends, and colleagues. Engage with us by leaving a review or comment. Your support keeps this podcast going and growing. Visit our website at jmmbmediallc.com to learn how we can support you in getting more visibility on your products and services. So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use. Welcome to Just Minded My Business Media LLC, where you get information that you can use. I'm your host, Ida Crawford. Well, I am so happy to bring to you today Anthony Vizzari, who is the Chief Sales Officer at the 7th Level Group with 20 million plus personal sales and a data-driven approach. He guides 6 to 9 figure companies, expanding teams and boosting performance. Anthony's impact is global, empowering 5,100 sales reps across 37 countries, achieving remarkable 3 times to 10 times results. A strategic innovator, he's essential to 7th Level Group's success, shaping a human-centric, revolutionary sales landscape with NEPO, which is neuro-emotional persuasion questioning. So welcome, Anthony.
Ida, it's awesome to be here. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you. I love what you're doing with your community as well. You've got an extensive background in the technology space, so it's great to be here.
Yes, great to have you. So this neuro-emotional persuasion questioning, what is that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's not just an abbreviation. There's definitely meaning behind it. So 7th Level has been founded on the new way of selling. So essentially, we're in an era, as you would know, with everyday interaction, where human beings are more skeptical and they're more cautious, and their guard is up more than ever. So the old approach and the old way of selling, unfortunately, it just doesn't work anymore. And then personally, it just doesn't feel right when you're on the other end of it. You can probably think of a time when you had a sales interaction, or you're buying something new and the sales rep is just trying to shove the product, down your throat, just being a product pusher, as we call it, where what NEPQ is, it's rather than being a product pusher, we actually train salespeople and sales companies and business owners and business leaders how to be more of a problem finder and a problem solver, using a method that works with human behavior rather than the old method, which just works against human behavior.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you can feel when you're trying to be sold something as opposed to somebody trying to help you with a problem that you are currently experiencing. Okay, so what does it take to become a top 1% sales rep in any industry?
It's another great question. And what it used to take isn't what it takes anymore, because we've seen time and time again a lot of sales reps that have come through different eras. The old approach that once upon a time may have worked, it just doesn't work anymore. And our mission as a company at 7th Level, our mission is to change that. Like, our mission is to change the way sales is perceived, because what you don't see is, at school, the teacher asks, what do you want to be when you're older? Right now, it's still weird if someone says, I want to be a salesperson. It doesn't really come up. But we want to change that, because all sales is, at the end of the day, Ida, is change. You're just selling change. So in order for you to become the top 1% sales rep, the better you are at selling someone on change that is in their best interest, then the more successful you will be, because at the end of the day, you're just helping somebody. So what it really takes is someone that's willing to put in the work, but they're in it for the right reasons. You can't just be in sales to take, whether it's money, whether it's, take, the opportunity away from other people and just be selfish with it yourself. Like, you have to show up, you have to have empathy, you have to be willing to help others. And the more you're able to do that, and the more authentic you are when doing that, the more people will actually come along with you, and you'll have a successful career.
Yes, and that's so true. People, that old saying, people do business with people they like. People don't care what you know till they know that you care.
You got it. And then, unfortunately, the way the sales industry has progressed over the years, it has a negative view and a negative stigma. We've
Mm-hmm.
all seen the movies, right? The Wolf on Wall Street, the buy or die, choking by the tire sayings, all these sayings like assume the sale. So people have a negative view based on their experiences and how they've been sold to. I'm sure your audience, especially, have been in situations where they've felt uncomfortable. Now, it's not our fault. It's not your fault that you view selling this way, but it's also our problem, because at the end of the day, when we're in sales conversations, we're looking for a solution to a problem or an emotional need that we have.
Yes.
So what we see as a company is there's just so many sales trainers out there that they're selling in a way that's very adversarial. It's me versus you. I'm trying to win you over. I'm trying to make money. So if you want to be a top 1% sales professional, you must view it differently, because everyone's in sales. Ida, as you would know, you know this. Whether
Yes.
you could be a CPA, right? You're trying to convince your clients for them to work with you. Maybe you're an attorney. You're trying to convince the judge and the jury that your whoever you're representing has a case and they're innocent. Maybe you're a parent. You're trying to convince your children for them to go to bed on time. So we're all in sales,
Mm-hmm.
but the way we view sales is always going to affect the way we perform. So that's where we're really on a mission, like I said, Ida, just to change all of that, because selling can be a pleasant experience when it's approached the right way.
Yes, and it should be. It really should be, because at the end of the day, you as a salesperson feel good because you're actually having fun doing what you do,
Exactly.
as opposed to looking at, oh, I got to make my quota this week or this month. That's pressure.
Yeah, and it's a really important word you just said there, is pressure. Now, what pressure is, it's an external force acting in. And a lot of salespeople, they have the experience of maybe making the sale because they pressured somebody, but what happens after the sale is they get refunds, they get complaints coming through head
Mhm.
office, the prospect doesn't actually come through, and the adoption phase isn't there. So the client experience just doesn't turn good. And that's exactly why, because they pressured the person to buy. Nobody likes feeling pressured.
No.
Everybody gets turned off. So what an EPQ really focuses on, because we're based on behavioral science, is how do you create tension, which is an internal force acting in, where the person in front of you actually wants to change. You might be a personal trainer trying to sell somebody on why they should get into shape because it's going to be better for their health. Is it your best interest to sell that person on why they should get into shape? Of course it is, but
Mhm.
it's how you go about selling that. So if we can change the way that the sale is made, rather than me forcing you to do something,
Mhm.
nobody likes to be pressured or forced. If I can get you to realize that, hey, if you don't do something about this, the consequences for you are going to far outweigh you doing it, and I can get you to come to that conclusion, then not only are you going to join or be sold, but you're going to change,
Mm.
which is the outcome. What everybody wants is you want to change and fix the problem you have now.
Absolutely. So, objections. That's one of the main things a sales people have to deal with is objections. So how does your approach deal with that?
Yeah, objections is an interesting topic, and within our organization, we have been voted one of the largest sales training organizations, especially by Selling Power magazine in the top 10, which is a prestigious magazine for salespeople. Objections is the one area of topic we get a lot of salespeople and companies and business owners and managers and VP of sales coming to us with my team just don't know how to handle objections, or my team just keep getting the objections. Now, objections are caused not just at the end of the conversation, but from the very first minute the salespeople are speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Because based on behavioral science, the first 7 to 12 seconds of any conversation, Ida, whether it's on the phone, selling in Zoom, maybe they're selling in person, but your prospects are immediately picking up on your social cues. So as a salesperson, we're getting assessed from the very start of the conversation. There's a misconception with objections, however. I got this objection. How do I respond to it? And we do call reviews with our clients and all of that. And a lot of the time, someone would bring me a call and say, Anthony, at minute 45, I got this objection. How would you respond? And my response to them is, play me the first 5 seconds of your conversation. Because by the time you've got the objection, it's already too late. You've either said something or haven't said something, or your tonality was off that caused distrust, or you didn't overcome the limitations that were in their mind. So the way we handle objections, number one, is we focus on how do we pre-handle the objections to make sure the objection doesn't even come up in the first place. Because an objection is simply a concern. You had the concern when you came into the conversation, which is why we're having the conversation in the first place. So my job is to help you alleviate that. And I would say, Ida, if I'm to really think about where this all stems from, there's three different eras, I would say, of sales persuasion, right? Because if I said to you boiler room selling, Ida, like what's the first image that would come to your mind? Boiler room selling.
Sweat, sweating, pressure.
Yes.
It would be a negative. It would be negative.
Exactly. Right. It all comes back to the movie, the Wolf on Wall Street. I've got this great opportunity for you. Now, according to the data, we are the least persuasive as human beings when we tell people things, or if we attempt to dominate or posture them. Mm-hmm. Like if you told your spouse or your teenage kids to do something, what are they going to do? They're going to push back.
Yes.
Right? It's the least persuasive way to sell. We see this all the time. You may have had these conversations where somebody comes in, they're trying to present you something. They pull up the slide decks. They pull up the pictures of the founders, the awards they've won. Our company was voted this, voted that. We have the best this, we have the best that. How many people do we speak to that tell us they're the second best or the third best? Nobody. Everybody says that.
Right.
Nobody says, well, Ida, we're actually the fifth best in the market. That's why you should go with us. Nobody's going to say that to you, right?
Right.
So psychologically, your prospects immediately when you're saying this, they're just going to trust you less because they're saying things they've heard from everybody they've ever spoken to, or even people that talk down their competitors. Have you ever heard this where they're saying, oh, our competitors, they're not good because of X, Y, Z reasons? It's like, if you're talking down somebody, you're just triggering distrust because everybody's talking down their competitors. So what we really found based on the data and based on behavioral science is nobody cares about like our story. Nobody cares about me. Nobody cares about my company story. Who do they care about at the end of the day?
They care about themselves. Right. Exactly.
Exactly. So we have a saying going around 7th level, which is ditch the pitch. It's the salespeople that are just pitching the first 5 minutes of a sales conversation. They're talking about all the benefits and how they can help. You're triggering objections right from the very start. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't work. So that's the first era of sales, which is the boiler room selling, which was invented somewhere in like the 1950s. So it's an old approach and it's triggering objection. Unfortunately, there are so many companies, Ida, that we see that are still using that approach.
And I couldn't believe you. I mean, I've seen it. I've had people approach me with that approach. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the first era. The second era of selling is more of the consultative era. And this came out in the 1980s by like Sandler Institute. It's the spin selling, if some of your audience would have heard of that. And don't get me wrong, it was a revolutionary way of selling compared to boiler room selling because it was based on logical based questions.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the issue though. When you ask logical based questions, your prospects are going to give you logical based answers. Now, as we know though, do people make decisions based on logic or based on emotion?
Yes, my emotions for sure.
Yeah, it's and brain studies have actually proven that. So when you ask questions like, so Ida, can you tell me the two biggest problems that are keeping you awake at night? Or like what two problems do you have most in your business right now? Or who besides you is going to be involved in making this decision? It's a logical based question. You're going to get a logical based answer. So at seventh level and using NEPQ, we're going to relanguage the questions to get them to open up more because the top 1% salespeople, they're triggering more engagement in the conversation. So we would ask them at the start of the conversation, rather than saying, what sort of budget, Ida, do you have to solve this problem? I know you would have heard this before with your interactions. What sort of budget do you have to solve this problem? What we would say is, well, I guess when it comes to actually getting the XYZ solved within the business, how much funding do you have set aside to be able to expand the business so you don't have to keep insert problem they said they had?
Mm-hmm.
So we would make it very, very specific to them. And another question would be, rather than at the start of the conversation, a lot of salespeople would open up the conversation saying, um, it looks like you reached out because you want XYZ solved. We're actually the best in the market at solving XYZ. So I know exactly why you reached out to us. Triggering resistance because
Mm-hmm.
folks on you. We would open it up and say, so Ida, looks like you had reached out about possibly getting some help with growing your media side of the business. Just so I understand, what was it that you saw when you went through our website that caused you to want to reach out in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm doing there is I'm using what we call neutral language. When I use the words possibly, it looks like you reached out about possibly getting some help with growing your business through advertising. It's more neutral than me saying, well, it looks like you reached out because you want to get some advertising. Instant trigger of sales resistance.
Okay.
So I'm relanguaging it in a way that has them coming along with me because what am I showing? I'm showing I'm detached from the outcome. I don't need the sale. So back to your question, the top 1% reps, they don't need the sale. They're more focused on, is there a sale to be made rather than making the sale in the first place?
Which is a totally different approach for sure.
Exactly. Yes.
Wow. So if companies want to work with you, how do they do so?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook group which we're happy to say we've just ticked over the 100,000 member mark. So a little over 100,000 people. That's salesrevolution.pro. If they're a salesperson, if they're a business, a vice president, a business owner, a CEO, or someone that just wants to get better at communication, then they can go to salesrevolution.pro. They'll be able to go in there. We do weekly free trainings every single week, and we've got some really good free resources for them to be able to get some help. If they go in there as well, Ida, what I'll do for your community, and they say that they came from your amazing podcast, what we can do is we can send them the top 50 questions. So this is a booklet on the top 50 questions that they should be asking on their conversations that will help them make more sales. We also have a book called The New Model of Selling, which was written by Jeremy Miner and co-authored by Jerry Acuff, which is the CEO of Delta Point. And it's the new model of selling, and it focuses on how to sell to an unsellable generation. It's a Wall Street bestseller that's called The New Model of Selling. It's a great read. They can find it online on Amazon or any Barnes and Noble. So that's where they can find us. And at the end of the day, like I said, our mission is to change the way sales are perceived. What we want is we want people to be able to pull up their hand at school one day when the teacher says, what do you want to be when you're older? And someone can say, I want to be a salesperson, and that not be weird, because we think it's a great opportunity for everybody to just become who they want to become, because they're helping people at the end of the day.
Yes. And like you mentioned earlier, we're all salespeople. You know, whether we're trying to get our kids to do something, our husbands, our friends, we're all salespeople. And this knowing how to, quote unquote, get what you want, you definitely need to come over differently so that that resistance doesn't kick in. I'm liking this a lot. This is definitely some good stuff. And I know my audience is going to definitely embrace it, because everybody is a salesperson. Everybody is in business. All of us are not salespeople. We just found something we love, we're passionate about, and now we got to figure out how to monetize it.
Exactly right. Spot on, Ida.
Wow, this is awesome. This is so awesome. I don't know what else to say, because you just been very, I mean, the examples were on, you can picture yourself in those different scenarios that you talked about for sure. So this is awesome. So what is gap selling in today? What is that?
Yeah, so that really ties into the third mode of selling, right? So gap selling is it came out a while ago that there's books about gap selling and all of that. The most persuasive way to sell, according to behavioral science, is through what we call dialogue, Ida. So we're the most persuasive when we allow the humans to persuade themselves into something. So using NEPQ questions, we're essentially creating a gap from where the person is to where they want to be. But rather than me forcing them to bridge that gap, we allow them to come to the conclusions. Because the question is, how do we get someone to persuade themselves? How do we get someone to see the gap? I can't say, hey, Ida, I want you to persuade yourself, and here are our wiring directions to send the wire. Like, I can't say any of that. So you have to learn specific skilled questions, but it's not just the questions. Like your audience can come into the group, like I said, and get the questions, but it's the right tonality. I need to know as a sales rep, when do I use more of a curious tone, or maybe more of a skeptical tone, or maybe I need to use a challenging tone, because a tone allows you to show empathy. It allows you to show concern. So once we learn that, it's going to trigger our prospects or the person in front of us to open up and want to engage. So that's really the difference. It's questions that are designed to pull them in and create the internal tension, so much internal tension that they want to actually act, right? I'll give you another example. There may be a certain point in a conversation where I need to use more of a challenging tone. So if I'm trying to sell someone on the need for them to get some media in for their business, right? A lot of people would just say, yeah, you definitely need to get some media into your business. So I'm glad you're here because you need to grow your audience. What we would do is we'd add more of a challenging tone that allows the prospect to really sell themselves into it. I would say, okay, but Ida, why look at doing this now though? Like, why not just push this down the road like a lot of other businesses are that just are using the old school method? Why am I? A lot of people would say, what? But Anthony, you're pushing the prospect away when they're coming to you for help. I'm saying that in a way because I'm getting the prospect to do the work. Because when they respond, they're going to tell me why they need to get media themselves. But most importantly, who are they telling? They're telling
Themselves.
themselves. So that's where most of the persuasion comes from. When I can get my prospect to tell themselves why they need something, rather than me just pushing it on them.
It's like the coaching approach. You let the client answer, you frame the questions so that they come up with the answer, so to speak, not you.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's just a new way, and it's really important for people to understand that the way they're speaking to people, it's just triggering resistance. It causes the I want to think about it objection. Let me just run it by the business partner. I want to sleep on it. I want to pray on it. I want to, I want to run it by the board. Now's not the right time. I didn't realize it was that expensive. All of these objections that people hear, we got to look at it. Does the person have a problem? Are they speaking to you for a reason? And it doesn't matter whether you're cold calling, outbound calling, you're selling B2B, B2C, or B2G, which is business to government. We train all of those industries. It's the things that people are saying, but more importantly, the way they're saying that are triggering objections. Like if I need you to see the consequences of you not doing this, rather than me saying, well, Ida, if you don't get some help with the business, you might not be in business in the next 4 months because look how much money the business is losing. Remember, I'm pushing that down your throat. I would say it like this. I would say, well, Ida, what do you feel is more risky? Do you feel it's more risky to get the funds together to be able to get some help so you can market your business to attract a larger audience? Or is it more risky to do nothing at all? The business just stays the same and you're not able to grow over the next 3, 6, 12 months to the point you won't be making any money. Like, you tell me, what do you feel is more risky? And I allow them to come to the conclusion that, hey, maybe it is more risky for me to do this, as another example.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Now, phone calls. Let's talk a little bit about that. People make appointments and they don't show up. And that's happened to me, so I definitely can relate. So how do you minimize that?
Yeah, that's a real, and part of my role is focusing a lot on this as well within the company. It's how to maximize show up rates. So I can give you some tactical things as well, which I think would help your audience. The biggest thing influencing a show up rate is you got to understand if somebody booked a call with you, they had the intention to have a conversation with you at the time of booking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, something's happened between time of booking and the call itself, which forced them to no-show. There are a few different reasons this could happen. Number one, people are just busy. People just forget. People have lives. So it's our job to remind them. So the first thing you want to do is you want to set up an automated reminder process and a reminder sequence. Based on the data, we've actually found that at time of booking, if you send them a text message and an email at time of booking, is a good step number one. You can do this for a calendar software if you're using Calendly or Schedule Once. The important thing with an automated reminder, though, is it has to sound automated because you're not going to be monitoring the responses. So
Mm-hmm.
I would simply set up a sequence, time of booking saying, auto reminder, you have just booked a scheduled a meeting. Your meeting with Ida Crawford for day, date, time zone has just been confirmed. Please check your email for the calendar invite. Now, I'll do that at time of booking. I'll then do another one 24 hours later, 3 hours before the meeting, and then 10 minutes before the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing really important, when you allow people to book in with you, do not allow them to book in more than 72 hours. If you let me book in more than a week in advance or 72 hours later, it significantly increases the chance of that person not showing up. So you want to limit the calendar view for 72 hours to maximize show-up rates. Another really important thing.
Okay.
A third final tactic I'll give you, which we notice significantly boost show-up rates, and I've come into organizations where the show-up rate has been around 22%, and within 30 days, we've able to lift that 22% to around a 58, 9%, or hovering around the 60% is where you want it to be. Now, this varies. Some industries you would have an 80% show up rate. Some industries you would have a 50%. It does vary, and the process has to change. But the final tactic I would say is you want to create dialogue. The biggest thing that will influence someone showing up is creating some sort of a dialogue, because people do get nervous. People do know they're walking into some sort of a sales conversation and they just don't want to be there, which is where you'd get your last minute reschedules, where people cancel the meeting, they reschedule the meeting. Something's going on there. So my recommendation to all salespeople out there is, as soon as the booking comes in, you have to make personal contact with the person. Don't just rely on your automated reminders. Mm-hmm. So the most effective is picking up the phone and calling them. Okay. It is far harder for someone to no-show or cancel an appointment with you if they know you or if they've spoken to you, because in the back of their mind, it's like, oh, there's some sort of connection there. I don't want to no-show either after calling me. So you call them. Hey, I saw you scheduled a meeting with me on date, time. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation, just so I can better prepare for our meeting. What specifically is it you're looking for as far as some help? Mm-hmm. And then from there, once they tell me, I'm going to send them some form of content for them to consume. Might be a podcast episode, might be a YouTube video, something relevant to them. So by the time they come to my meeting, they've already had dialogue with me, but they're a lot warmer because they've consumed something I wanted them to consume before that meeting that would actually help them. So those are a few things that it makes a massive difference when implemented.
Wow, this has been, you have dropped so many nuggets.
I'm not that cool, but I appreciate the compliment. Thanks, Ida.
Yes, I mean, I'm paying close attention, and I will be listening to this again and again. Because a lot of times when you're talking, you know how the human brain is. You can read something over and over and over, or hear something and pick up something that you didn't hear before. So
exactly.
Thank you so much. This has been thebomb.com, to say the least. This has been great, Anthony. You have dropped so many nuggets to myself as well as my audience. And again, how do people connect with you?
Yeah, so if anyone from your audience that wants to learn how to ask better questions that work with human behavior to stop triggering resistance, or maybe they're a business owner, or maybe they're a C-level executive and they want to learn how to communicate better, or sell their team on why they need to perform better, the best place to go is salesrevolution.pro. That's our free Facebook group. So salesrevolution.pro, that's P for Peter, RO. And in there, if your audience goes in there, Ida, and they say, hey, I heard Anthony on Ida's podcast, we can send them the NEPQ book of questions, which is a list of a lot of the questions that we actually help all of our audience ask to get better at sales. And then if they like reading, we have a new book called The New Model of Selling to an Unsellable Generation. And that's in any Barnes and Noble or Amazon. I think it's like $17 for the book. And if they go there, it's very tactical. The book, we made it to be very tactical. So we've got a lot more examples like I went over today. And then we also walk through the framework in more detail. So it'll just give them some things they can go off and apply right away. So that's where your audience could find us the best.
All righty now. So thank you so much, Anthony, and also you, the audience. Thank you for tuning in. We truly appreciate you, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Ida. Pleasure is mine.
Thank you to our guests and you, our valued audience, for stopping by. We truly appreciate you. Many blessings to you and yours.